Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My dear students, today we are going to start the second most important adaptation and that is hyperplasia. In our previous lecture, we have discussed all the causative agents which are causing the injuries. So we have discussed the etiology of the cell injury, and we have started with the definitions of the cellular adaptations, and we have done the most important one, and that is hypertrophy. As you all know that hypertrophy is just an increase in the size of the individual cell, resulting in an increase in the organ size. Today we are going to start with our new adaptation, and that is hyperplasia. As its name shows, plasia means production and hyper means increased production. So by increased production, we basically want to say that the number of the cells in an organ or the tissue are going to increase, and it will result in an increased mass of the organ or the tissue. So hyperplasia can only take place in the cell population that is capable of dividing. So division of the cell is an important thing in a hyperplasia. So hyperplasia can be a physiological one and it could be a pathological one, like we have discussed in the hypertrophy also, these two categories. So first of all, in a physiological hyperplasia, we have two types of the hyperplasia. One is the hormonal hyperplasia, which is because of the increase in the hormone like estrogen, if it is going to cause the increase in the endometrium number, so it is going to cause the endometrial hyperplasia. Then we have compensatory hyperplasia. As its name suggests, that it is going to compensate some decrease in number. So as you can see that people are donating liver, and we say that there is no harm in donation of the liver because it can go back to its normal size. So liver can go back after the partial resection to its normal size by the process of compensatory hyperplasia. And my dear students, just remember this thing: compensatory hyperplasia is totally a different phenomena than the regeneration. Regeneration is seen in a lower animals like lizards. You must have heard about it, and you have read in your FSC that because of the regenerative capabilities, lizard can regrow its tail in other parts, but in humans this is basically as a compensatory hyperplasia, and this is going to happen after a damage or a partial resection. So the other category that we are going to discuss after the physiological one is the pathological hyperplasia. As its name shows, pathological hyperplasia is related with some disease process. So if there is an excess of the hormones or the growth factors because of any other thing, then it is going to cause the endometrial, and the example is endometrial hyperplasia, and it is because of the increase in the estrogen levels. Just remember this thing, that when you are going to have in place of 2 cells, you are going to have 5, 6, 7, 8 cells. So it means that cells are going rapidly into the cell cycle, and when cells are going rapidly into the cell cycle, what is going to happen? That they are going to cross the checkpoints in the cell cycle like S1, G1 to S checkpoint, or G1 to S checkpoint, or S to M checkpoint, without crossing any other checkpoint. So there could be the chances of mutations. So pathological hyperplasia is going to give you a fertile soil in which cancers can grow. So my dear students, just remember this thing: hyperplasia is a reversible thing. So it is a reversible one, but it is going to give a soil, it is going to give a place for a cancerous growth, which is an irreversible one. So this is the major difference between a hyperplasia and the cancerous growth. So we have just discussed an example in the pathological hyperplasia of the endometrial hyperplasia. So in the endometrium, if there is an increase in the endometrial hyperplasia and we can have an atypia, which is an abnormal production or abnormality is seen, then there is an increased risk for developing endometrial carcinoma. Like with endometrial hyperplasia with atypia, there are 33% of the chances that this patient can develop endometrial endometrial cancers. Here you can see that this is a very much normal picture of the endometrium. This is a very much normal endometrial cavity, and here you can see a much bigger endometrial cavity. I am outlining the endometrial cavity. There is no swelling or redness in this area, so there we are having a very normal number of the endometrial cells. Here you can see, because of the increase in the number of the endometrial cells, the endometrial cavity is narrowed down, and because of the increased production of these cells, there could be cells which can have mutations, or they can show the atypical changes. So there were chances, because of the increased production of the endometrium, that it can go into the cancerous growth. So hyperplasia could be a result of the growth factor driven proliferation of the mature cells. So one source is from the mature cells and other is from the stem cells, which is residing around the basement membrane, and the other cells from which a new cells can reproduce. So here you can see that this is a picture of the prostate and histological picture of the prostate, and this is the corpora amylacea, and this is your and this is your prostatic lining. And you can see that because of the increased number of the prostatic epithelium, here you can see that it is thrown into the folds, because in order to increase the surface area, it has thrown into the folds. So this is a typical picture of the endometrial hyperplasia. And here you can see still we are having all the nuclei in the basal region, but if this growth rate can continue, then there are chances that there could be a development of the prostatic carcinoma in this area. So our next category is atrophy. As its name shows, atrophy, so a decrease in the number or decrease in the production. So atrophy is basically a reduce in the size of an organ or the tissue because of the decrease in the cell size and also in the number. So it is a direct opposite to the hyperplasia and the hypertrophy. Like hypertrophy and hyperplasia, atrophy could be a physiological one or it could be a pathological one. So normal physiological atrophy is very much common, as you all remember from the knowledge of your embryology, that some embryonic structures such as notochord or thyroglossal duct can undergo atrophy during fetal life and during fetal development. So, and other thing that you can see, that after the delivery or after the parturition, the uterus of the women can go back to its normal size. In the last lecture, I have shown you the picture of the uterus, which is a gravid uterus, and you can see that from the normal uterus, the size has been increased almost 6 to 7 times. So that uterus has to come back. So that hypertrophied uterus, which is a hypertrophy in the myometrium, can go back, or there will be a decrease in the size after the parturition because of the process of atrophy. And this is a form of the physiological one. So this is a very much normal, because it's a normal physiology. So this thing can happen. And the other example that we can give is after the lactation is going to cease. So there will be no prolactin. So the mammary gland are going to reduce in the size and in the number also. So the causes of atrophy, this is a very important question, and your assignment for today is that you have to tell me about the causes of atrophy. I'm just telling you again and again that today's assignment or today's homework or your homework is that you have to tell me along with your attendance about the causes of atrophy. At least you have to tell me about the 5 causes of the atrophy. I'm going to mark your attendance when you are going to write down along with that the causes of atrophy. So first is decreased workload or atrophy of the disuse atrophy, another name. This is very similar. All of you have seen that whenever whenever your brother, your sister or yourself has a fracture arm and the plaster has been applied, so you are not using your arm. When the plaster is removed after 4 weeks or 6 weeks, you can see that the grit of one arm and the other arm will be variable. So the arm in which the plaster has been applied has decreased in the size because of the disuse atrophy. Then another form is loss of innervation. If some person has an accident and because of that the person has denervation or spinal cord injury, so of the spinal cord injury, and it is affecting the lower limbs, then the sizes of the lower limbs and the muscle growth is going to go down, and this type of atrophy is going to called as denervation atrophy. Then comes diminished blood supply. If the organ is not going to have good blood supply, so it doesn't mean that the organ is not having the good nutrition. When it is not going to have a good nutrition, the cell size and the number will be decreased. So like if we have an infarction, so the size will be decreased. After thrombotic blood vessels, infarction can happen and size can decrease. Then the fourth one is inadequate nutrition. You can have an example of the marasmus or Kwashiorkor. In a marasmus and Kwashiorkor, there is a protein loss and total loss of the muscle mass in the babies, and it can be seen in African countries. Loss of endocrine stimulation. This is very, very common and it can be a physiological one also. When there is the simplest example that we can give is after menopause, when there are no estrogen is secreting, so there is a decrease in the estrogen levels, the uterus is going to decrease in the size, and we are not having a proliferation in the endometrium. The last one is because of pressure. So if there is any pressure, like I'm going to give you an example, there is a tumor on the kidney. So if tumor is compressing the upper pole of the kidney, then what is going to happen is, my dear student, that this area can go under the atrophy because of the pressure effects. So these are the examples, etiology of the atrophy. Here you can see this is an example of the disuse atrophy. Here you can see this is your normal bicep muscle, a very healthy bicep muscle, and if the person is not using because of some fracture or plaster has been applied there, so there is a decrease in the mass of the bicep and because of the muscular atrophy. So overall growth is also going to decrease here. Here you can see this is much healthier one. So atrophy, the initial response is the decrease in the cell size and the organelles because of the reduction in the metabolic needs of the cells, which is sufficiently providing us to permit its survival. So if there are no nutrition, there is no blood supply, so cell has to survive. So it can undergo the adaptation, and that adaptation is basically an atrophy. So cell is going to decrease in the cell size and the cell number, and this is going to cause as atrophy. In an atrophic muscle, the cells contain fewer mitochondria and the myofilaments and a reduced amount of rough endoplasmic reticulum. So the demand of the oxygen and the protein supply will be decreased by this. So by bridging into a new balance in the cell's metabolic demands and lowest levels of the blood supply, nutrition, or any other estrogenic or hormonal stimulation, a new equilibrium is going to be achieved, and this equilibrium is only possible when we are going to have a decrease in the number of the organelles in the cells, and this decrease in the organelles is going to decrease the activities by these cells. So early in the process, atrophic cells may not have a diminished function, but as I am telling you that when there is a decrease in the organelles, so there will be the decrease in the function, and when there is a decrease in the function, they can't go to survive for a longer period of time. So a time will come when there is an irreversible injury and the cells can undergo by a physiological death, and the physiological death is called as apoptosis. Atrophy results from the, so now we are going to discuss about the pathogenesis of the atrophy. Atrophy results from the decreased protein synthesis, as we have just discussed, and increased protein degradation in the cells, whether it's a protein degradation in the form of organelles or in the form of cellular structures. So there will be the decreased in the protein synthesis, because there will be the decrease in the rough endoplasmic reticulum and the machinery, cellular machinery. So protein synthesis decreases because of the reduced metabolic activity, and this whole process, this degradation of the proteins, can take place by the ubiquitin proteasome pathway. This is a very important university question, my dear students, you should remember, and this is your also a part of your assignment that you have to submit it by Sunday, that what is a proteasome pathway. So this is basically a proteasome pathway. I just want that you should read it from your books, so you would be able to understand this ubiquitin proteasome pathway. Whenever there is a nutrient deficiency, whenever there is a hormonal deficiency, whenever there is a decrease in the blood supply, whenever there is a disuse or denervation, this is going to activate the ubiquitin-like gases, and this is going to attach the small peptide ubiquitin to the cellular proteins and target these proteins for the degradation in the form of the proteasomes. So degradation in the proteasomes is going to happen. This is very, very important. Just remember this thing. Ubiquitin ligases are going to activate, and because of the activation of the ubiquitin ligases, the small peptide ubiquitin is going to activate the cellular proteins, and there will be the degradation in the proteasomes. So atrophy is also accompanied by the autophagy. What do we mean by autophagy? Auto means self and phagy means digestion. So eating oneself is means as autophagy, with resultant increase in the number of the autophagic vacuoles within the cells. Here you can see that this is the brain, and there are two, this is a very much normal brain, and in this here you can see that the gyri and sulcus are very much prominent. So why these gyri and sulcus are prominent here in the picture B? Because the brain mass is decreased because of the aging or because of some degeneration process, and because of the decrease in the brain mass, the vessels are more highlighted. So this is an atrophy of the brain, and this is your normal brain. If you can see this picture, in the last lecture I have discussed with you that this is a normal heart. Because of the hemodynamic overload or backflow pressure, then could be a pathological hypertrophy, and if this hypertrophy is going to go further, then there is a decrease in the wall of the cavities, and so there will be the more backflow pressure, so heart can fail. But If there is an hemodynamic unloading, so decrease in the blood supply, so there will be the because of the decrease in the blood supply, there will be the decrease in the protein synthesis, and more protein degradation is going to happen because of the new balance that is going to be achieved, in which there is a decreased protein synthesis and more protein degradation. There will be a metabolic shift, and there could be a fetal myocardial gene expressions, and it will result in an atrophy of the heart. My dear students, our last adaptation is metaplasia. So metaplasia is a reversible change. All of these adaptations are a reversible one. Just remember this thing. These are all reversible changes. This question is always asked in the Viva exam. This is always your MCQ, that whether it's a reversible one or a irreversible one. So remember this thing, whether it's a hypertrophy, whether it's a hyperplasia or metaplasia, these are all the reversible changes. And in the metaplasia, one cell form is going to differentiate into the other cell type. So change of one cell type into another cell type because of any irritation, there is a metaplasia. And why this metaplasia is going to happen? Because some cells can withstand the new environment, the new irritant environment more, and the previous one cannot withstand the adverse environmental effects. So because of the adverse environmental effect, and in order to better withstand it, the cells are going to change their types, and stem cells are going to reprogram. So there will be the reprogramming of the stem cells. Just remember this thing, in metaplasia this is very, very important thing, that the stem cells are going to reprogram. The most common type of metaplasia that is you are going to see there is an epithelial metaplasia from columnar to the squamous, and this is going to happen because of the smokes, because of the cigarette smoke in a respiratory tract. And then another example is the stones in the excretory duct of the salivary gland or the bile ducts or the pancreas, and it is also going to be metaplastic change from the normal secretory columnar epithelium by the stratified squamous epithelium. But because you know that squamous epithelium is a tougher epithelium, our skin has a squamous epithelium because it's a tougher one, it can withstand the irritant environment. So stone is going to cause the irritation, your smoke is going to cause the irritation. So in order to better withstand this, we need a squamous tough epithelium. Another example is a deficiency of vitamin A or retinoic acid, which is going to cause a change in a squamous metaplasia in a respiratory epithelium. Just see this thing. This is a very, very important diagram. Just remember this, that this is your normal ciliated columnar epithelium. Here you can see that this is a columnar cell, and upon this we have a cilias. This is a diagrammatic representation, and if you can see here, this is your cell, and upon that cell we have a cilias. Here all of these are cilias. So what is going to happen? Because of some irritant effect like in the smoke or other thing, that these stem cells are going to reprogram, and these are going to deviate from the production of the normal columnar ciliated epithelium to the squamous change. And here you can see this is now cells are going to flattened out, soul-shaped Scheidt cells, and these are all your squamous cells. From normal columnar epithelium there is a change into the squamous metaplasia, and this is normally seen in a smoker's lung. So again a picture of the smoker's lung. This is your pseudostratified respiratory columnar epithelium, and this is going to be converted into the stratified squamous. This is very, very important. Please do remember it. Then the reverse can also happen, that from the squamous epithelium a columnar epithelium can happen, and the most important example is of Barrett's esophagus. Barrett's esophagus is a change because of the GERD. Just remember this thing, GERD, gastro esophageal reflux disease. So whenever must have heard that I'm not feeling good, whenever I eat something after 20 minutes, डॉक्टर साहब मुझे उपकार आने शुरू हो जाते हैं, I feel nauseating, I feel like vomiting. So because your food contents are going back into the esophagus, so because these are your stomach contents, your acid is going from the stomach to the esophagus, and your normal esophageal lining, or this is a squamous lining, is not able to withstand the that pH, so it is going to be replaced into the intestinal like columnar cells, because intestinal like columnar cells are able to better withstand the gastric acids and the juices. So here in the esophagus, these intestinal metaplasia or goblet metaplasia, whatever you want to call it, there are many names, whether it is Barrett's esophagus, intestinal metaplasia, this can give rise to the adenocarcinomas. Where in the future, if this GERD is for a longer duration, then an adenocarcinoma can result from this. So if the stimulus is more, if the stimulus is for a longer period of time or for a chronic duration, then this metaplasia is giving you the growth for the cancer. So my dear students, just remember this thing, that this is a metaplasia is a double-edged sword. Why it is a double-edged sword? Because metaplasia is going to replace your normal epithelium, so your normal functioning will be lost. Here you can see in this picture, this is your normal squamous epithelium, very red velvety epithelium, very fresh looking epithelium, and here you can see a very brownish, a very slough like structure is there. So it has changed from the normal squamous, this is your normal squamous epithelium, and from your normal squamous epithelium, this is your normal squamous epithelium. From your normal squamous epithelium, it is changing into the goblet cell metaplasia or intestinal. Here you can see the goblet cells or mucin within these cells. So this is a change from your normal squamous epithelium to the goblet cells metaplasia or the intestinal metaplasia, or which we are going to call that Barrett's esophagus. So one thing, your normal looking squamous epithelium will be lost, and it will be lost because of another epithelium which is a foreigner, so it can give rise to the cancers in the future. So it is a double-edged sword. Just remember this thing. Then there could be a connective tissue metaplasia in the formation of the cartilage, bone or adipose tissue, and from the mesenchymal tissue which does not contain this element. You must have seen that in the writers there is a tendon, in the tendon there is a bone formation, and this can be seen in the students, this can be seen in the writers, and the people who pray a lot can have a bony structures appearance in the tendons or in the feet, in our feet. So this is going to be called under the heading of connective tissue metaplasia. So I have just told you in our first or second slide of the metaplasia that the main pathogenesis of the metaplasia is the reprogramming of the stem cells, because stem cells has to reprogram to form and other types of the cells which are the foreigner to that location. So in the metaplastic chain, these precursor cells are going to differentiate into a new pathway, and this differentiation into a new pathway or this reprogramming into a new pathway can be brought about by the signals like cytokines, like growth factors, like extracellular matrix. So whatever change is going to happen in your extracellular matrix or in the cellular environment, and because of this change in the cell environment, it can produce a signals in the form of the cytokines, growth factors, or cell matrix components like fibroblastic growth factors, like interleukins, like anything else. And this is going to cause the reprogramming of the stem cells in that area, and this reprogramming of the stem cell can brought about a metaplastic change. So this cycle is very, very important for all of you to remember. So the last thing that I just want to discuss with you, we will discuss it further in our chapter of the neoplasia, dysplasia. As its name shows, my dear students, just remember this thing. You should know what is the meaning of certain name. So dys means disordered. So if there is a disordered plasia means production. Whenever there is a disordered production, we are going to call this dysplasia. So normal squamous epithelium, here you can see this is whole as your normal squamous epithelium, and this normal squamous epithelium has been changed into a very aberrant looking, very disorganized looking squamous epithelium, or the dysplastic epithelium. And here you can see that there is a very much well oriented type of epithelium. In lower areas we have a much bigger cells, and after whenever we are going upward, the cells are going to be flattened up. But here you can see there is a disarray in the arrangement, and this is going to be called as dysplasia. Dysplasia is still a potentially reversible process, but it is the first step in the development of the neoplastic processes. So your take-home message for today is you should remember the differences between the atrophy, which is a decrease in the number, and decrease in the cell size, as you can see, in the hypertrophy, which is increase in the mass of the individual cell or size of the cells. Then hyperplasia, which is an increase in the number of the cells. And then the metaplasia, in which from one cell type there is a change into another cell type. And then dysplasia, which is a totally disordered growth. You should remember their names, you should remember their examples. Thank you very much for today. Inshallah, hope to see you soon.